if you're going to cloud, and if you're migrating to cloud from on-prem, and you think cloud is very expensive, either you didn't notice that the quality of the work that you are doing is increased because you weren't doing that stuff in the past. For example, if you go and get a SQL database, right? By default in Azure, you got 2 replicas, 2 failovers.
Yeah.
But when a customer, when it goes and starts, provisioning databases, and then it says, okay, this is expensive. This is expensive because of the fact that you got 2 failovers. Did you have failovers on your, past on-prem location? No, I didn't. You should have. And if you had, you would see that cloud is actually much more cheaper.
How are you?
Oh, good, great.
How do you like the conference so far?
Conference is awesome. I mean, it's good. I haven't, to be honest, I haven't been in any of the sessions yet because I was just going over the preparation for my session. But right now, all set, all good.
And what is your talk about?
My talk is about serverless framework. Not exactly about serverless, but the framework. So just to differentiate the two, there is this thing, the concept called serverless, and then there's a framework called serverless, which kind of helps building serverless stuff without worrying about what vendor you prefer to work with. So that framework kind of wraps and provides additional functionality, obviously. All of the APIs that comes from Google Functions, Google Cloud Functions, AWS Lambda, Azure Functions, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So my talk is about how people can use that framework to start building functions without worrying about that they're gonna get vendor locked.
That's interesting. So basically, the idea is that so far, if you wanted to do serverless, you were pretty much tied to a single provider,
that is the case.
Unless you rewrote your...
It's the situation with every, once you go higher than infrastructure as a service, right? When you go into the platform as a service, and higher than that, as much stuff as you hand over to the service provider, you start getting locked into the platform because they handle a lot of the stuff that you are supposed to do, and then it kind of makes it hard to move away because the APIs that they expose. I mean, AWS APIs. I mean, let's have the storage as the simplest example. If you are building something for AWS, right, and you are doing some storage stuff there, you're not going to be able to move anywhere else because the storage APIs are different on Azure, are different on AWS, are different on Google Cloud Functions. So even on the storage layer, you are kind of being vendor locked. It kind of makes it harder to move away. That's the same thing with the functions as well. Obviously, the functions are more higher level, thing. So
and it also kind of constrains what languages you can use, right?
Yeah, that's one major thing. What languages you can use, what events you can tap into. So my demos will be with Node.js, which is works everywhere, and everyone out there has support for it pretty much, so at least you are safe from that perspective, so you can deploy. My demo will have an AWS Lambda function and an Azure function we're going to deploy into the 2 clouds.
What do you think, what are the best use cases for serverless architectures? When would you decide to use Lambda functions or functions as a service or platform as a service?
Yeah, I mean, the functions thing is a hard decision if you look at it as a full-blown migration. For example, I mean, it's hard to say, hey, I'm gonna I have this new project that I'm gonna do, and I want to do it with all functions. It's hard because if you decide to do that, you will need you will need your team to go through a mind shift as well, because most probably if you're going with all functions, you're going to need to do some eventing as well, and it's kind of hard to push a team which doesn't have past experience with this to start doing it, because they're going to start not only you're going with functions because of the nature of the BIST, you are going to do, if not perfectly, you are going to be building some microservices. At least you will be forced. That's what when you start building functions, you are by its nature being forced to go the microservices path. Do you do it perfectly or not? That's your call. But for example, the maximum timeout of a function on Azure is just 10 minutes. So on other platforms it's much shorter, because the idea is a function is small, it works, it does its stuff, and it dies, and then, or it's handovers the job or some different jobs to other functions. So it's pretty much distributed, right? That's how microservices are. So what I'm trying to say is it might be hard for a team to start with all functions at the beginning, but you can look at function as, yesterday we had this talk with you, you can look at them as the glue, right? Between your cloud services, whatever you are building in the cloud, you always have this notion of connecting the dots, right? I mean, I get an API here, an API there. Hey, it would be nice if I could have this webhook hit this API and then kick another thing, or it would be nice if a file has been uploaded to my storage, I could kick an operation and so on and so forth. Or it could be nice if I could have some timed operation, timed triggers going on, right? So, and for these situations, the functions are a very, very good fit, because whatever you're gonna do, it's essentially like, for those of you who have no idea about what I'm talking of, imagine the store procedures, or not store procedures, the triggers you have in SQL, right? So those are, hopefully those are small, right?
Yeah.
They do something when they're triggered. So you can use functions like that and use cloud services as triggers. That's, from a serverless framework perspective, it's called events. So you define the events, then you define your function, and your function works when that event is triggered. That event can be a webhook, that event can be a storage operation, that event can be a change in the database, and then you hit your function and it does its job and then dies.
Yeah, and actually this shows how much this whole thing is tied to an event-driven architecture, right? So
yes, exactly.
All the stuff that the reactive programming guys have been talking about for years now is basically essential when you are doing these kinds of functions of service.
The good part, the part that I really like is the fact that you're only paying for what, from day one, when the cloud came out, when we started, talking about cloud, the idea was that you only pay for what you use.
Yeah.
But is it really the case today when we look at cloud services? I'm getting it to, I'm provisioning EC2 instances. I'm provisioning VMs. I'm provisioning, when you look at the pricing structure of most of the cloud services out there, there are tiers. So you're essentially committing into a tier. You are provisioning some resource. Yeah. But then you have the ability to scale, and that's good. That's what it's supposed to be. But provisioning is not how it's supposed to be. I should only pay for what I use. That means I shouldn't do any, commitment from day one.
And actually, what I have seen, or the problem that I used to have with platform as a service, one, you have to write a lot of code just to make sure that you have the right scale. Yeah. And you actually have to have reserved resources that you are not using at each time, because whenever you have like a surge of traffic, then you want to be able to scale up, and usually it takes a few seconds or even a few minutes sometimes to start a new instance, and then you have to have that kind of buffer.
Of course, it depends to what vendor you're working with, but in what layer, what level you're in. But it can go as far as you are responsible of monitoring or of your KPIs, how much memory you're using, how much processor you're using. Then interpret that and decide on how you're going to scale. And then most probably you just tell the platform that you want to scale with this amount of hardware, and that hardware has been added to your pool. That's one option, but nothing comes close as the functions, because you are paying for the CPU time and for the gigabyte per second. So the memory that you use per the CPU time that your function is functioning, you are gonna pay for it. So that's the unit. That's the unit of measurement for the payment. That's the unit of measurement for the resource. It's not that you are reserving a single core or something. You're actually paying for the CPU time, for the CPU cycles, and the amount of memory you use for the life cycle, for the lifespan. That's what excites me. I mean, being able to just pay for the exact amount of CPU cycles I use, CPU time I use, and the memory I use, and then your function dies. And with all the platforms out there right now, functions are essentially indefinitely scalable.
Yeah.
Right? You don't need to worry about scaling. If you're calling a function, it's supposed to work. If you're calling it 10 billion times, it is still supposed to work. You don't need to worry about scaling or anything. Just obviously your invoice at the end of the month is going to scale. So
yeah, but I guess you can also set up like limits, right? Because I don't use AWS that much because I'm more using Heroku these days. But I do have a few things running on AWS, and I could actually set up a limit, and if I exceed that, then I get an alert.
Yeah, that's a very, very valid point, because indefinitely scalable invoice doesn't sound exciting, right? I mean, what if you got an HTTP endpoint as an event trigger for the function?
Or what if you get DDoS, right?
Exactly. I mean, DDoS, most probably and hopefully the platform is supposed to handle that at some point. But if it doesn't, obviously, and you're being hit by some users, then you're going to pay for it. Yeah, I mean the subscription level limits, the account level limits, payment limits really helps with that. But on the other hand, you need to have, I think notifications and warnings are much more helpful than hard limits. Because what if really people are coming and using your app?
Yeah.
How do you decide on that? What if really you have been, in the news on a TV channel? You were sleeping in your country, but on the other side of the world, you are on the news. Your app is on the news, and people start downloading, and you got this, payment limit on your account, and you just crashed.
Yeah.
So better you get some kind of a notification that wakes you up in the middle of the night. That's better than losing customers. And you wake up and you look into that. You decide if it's a valid consumption or not. I guess that would be a better strategy.
But that ties in very tightly with the whole DevOps culture, right? Because for that to work, you actually have to have like a strong DevOps culture where people are actually willing to wake up in the middle of the night to look into issues like that.
Hopefully in a DevOps culture, no one needs to wake up in the middle of the night, but
not regularly, of course, but you will, if you have like services that you are running yourself, then if there is an issue, then you're gonna have to wake up. That's life. That's life. It is. I mean, and I guess it wouldn't be a problem to wake up in the middle of the night if you are being on the news on a country, right? Well, duh.
If you look at what we have as in the mean of technology, there shouldn't be any apps lagging because of scalability issues. Yeah, it's most probably a team leader or engineer or whoever makes the decision in their team didn't decide to invest in designing things in an scalable way.
I think that many people are still not aware of these technologies. I mean,
they're aware or they're not, but the other question is, are they ready to invest? Right? Are they ready to invest? Because that's an investment.
Well, it's an investment in terms of writing different applications, in terms of learning the technology, and actually, if you think about it, so it seems like an investment in the terms that usually cloud servers are more expensive than running your own servers. Unless you count the amount of work that your sister guys are putting in. So one of the things that we realized when we started to move towards Heroku and platform as a service was that suddenly our server cost went up and the financial the guys at finance were freaking out that, oh, this is very expensive. Let's just use our own servers, and then we actually showed them that yeah, you might have an increase in cost here, but we have actually saved up this amount of money on the Systech side.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty convincing thing, because yes, per minute it will cost more, and if most of your cloud servers are running constantly, then it will cost more, but you are saving up a lot of money on
it's easy to see, I mean, cloud service providers, they are tracking the cost on their own and reporting you, right, how much it costs. You're seeing it in your bank. But monitoring your internal resources, I mean, the people cost isn't something every company does, especially in the startup space, right? They don't see the cost that relates to people, to the time that they invest in making things work. So I guess that's why it's kind of an invisible cost. And
in many cases, it's even harder, because you won't go around firing your system engineering guys, right? You will instead, what will happen is that you will get more productive, and you will get more stuff out the door. And in that case, it's even harder, because you can put like another saving next to that extra cost. Instead of what you have is a very intangible increase in productivity, which is even harder to monetize.
Yeah. If you're going to cloud, and if you're migrating to cloud from on-prem, and you think cloud is very expensive, either you didn't notice that the quality of the work that you are doing is increased because you weren't doing that stuff in the past. For example, if you go and get a SQL database, right? By default in Azure, you got 2 replicas, 2 failovers.
Yeah.
But I mean, a customer, when it goes and starts, provisioning databases, and then it says, okay, this is expensive. This is expensive because of the fact that you got 2 failovers. Did you have failovers on your, past on-prem location? No, I didn't. You should have. And if you had, you would see that cloud is actually much more cheaper. But because in the past you were just relying on a single server and you didn't have what you were supposed to have, a failover for your database, it was cheaper, but because of the fact you were missing some stuff, your quality was lower. Right now, because you're switching to cloud, the underlying services are providing you more quality than what you had in your old on-prem location. Of course, this is just one example, but sometimes this is the case, and sometimes it's because people are moving to cloud without doing any change in their architecture, and that's why they're paying a lot of money, because their apps aren't cloud native.
Yeah,
they are not redesigned for the way it is supposed to be in the cloud, especially on the platform as a service and the higher level layers. You need to do some rewrite. If you don't, I mean, your resource consumption is not going to be optimized, and you might pay a little bit more than you're supposed to.
Yeah. So. Actually, and I really like your point about the replicas, because I think it was Martin Fowler who came up with this test. But here's the idea: Martin walks into your server farm with a flamethrower, and he just destroys every machine in the data center. And the test is, how much time does it take for you to be online again?
Yeah.
And that's a really, really good point right there.
It is.
If someone walks into, or even someone detonates a bomb on site of your data center, you should be back up within minutes.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be, even though it would cost your company a lot of money or whatever, but you should be possible to be online again within seconds.
And if you're doing your own stuff, you're not going to a service provider, you're having your own servers and things. Yeah. It's kind of hard to make sure you got a failover in a separate data center, right? And it actually costs more than setting up a failover in AWS.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the point. But yeah, hopefully, with time, once the cloud services get higher and higher consumption, the baseline prices will go down as well.
Mm-hmm. When did you start working with functions and services?
Oh, good question.
And why did you start that?
I guess it's been around 1.5 or 2 years. Why did I start? Because I love high-level stuff.
Okay.
I am lazy.
Yeah,
I love platforms where things are handled by the platform, and I need to just
because
focus on my code. I love it.
You don't want to worry about implementing REST APIs and stuff like that, or for scaling your services. You just want to run your functions, right?
I hate VMs. I hate machines. I hate virtual machines. I hate to manage them.
Okay.
So better someone does it for me. I'm okay paying for it.
Okay. Okay, so thank you for being
this
here.
has been a nice chat.
I hope you had a nice time. I
hope I look
discussion.
good on this camera.
Everyone looks good on that camera. Okay.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
See you next time.
Yeah,
bye.
Bye.
Hey, it's Debbie here. So turns out it's not Wednesday, and I usually upload these videos on Wednesdays. What happened? I totally forgot it. I just kind of lost track of time. Anyway, it's here now, and thank you for watching it. And a few other things. First of all, this year I have been to many conferences, so I could record a lot of sessions. Next year we are going to have more videos coming up. I already have a few in queue, but I don't have any conferences set up for next year yet. So if you know about any conference that has an open call for paper, let me know so that I can apply, and then I can travel there and take a few more of these videos with awesome people. If you're celebrating, happy holidays, and see you next year. Bye!